Reaperman here with something a bit different than my previous videos. This is going to be the first video of a build log putting together this here custom arcade stick that I picked up off of eBay. It's going to have three main goals. It's going to do three things that my previous sticks haven't done. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to let me try some Mitsu controls. And they have to be some form of Asian control because this is actually a low form factor case and my usual IL buttons and sticks will not fit inside it. The second thing it's going to do is it's going to be a 6-button Neo Geo compatible controller for my small cab supergun. Now, I'm not too happy with the small cab supergun, but that's a story for a different time. It's what I have, so we're building the controller to that standard. But it's important that I have the access to all 6 buttons because I do have a Street Fighter II Turbo board that I've never played before, and that's quite a shame. Third thing it's going to do is with this 6-button layout, it's going to let me later on make a Super Nintendo converter and actually bring a real arcade stick to Super Nintendo. So first off, let's have a look at the stuff we're using here. So this is the auction on eBay where I get this fight stick housing. As you can see, it is MDF in the center, some form of wood around the outside. It's a little easier to see from the back here. So it's hard to tell what kind of wood it is, but my guess is maybe pine or basswood. It's really hard to say with pieces this small. There are 2 layers of MDF, as you can see here, kind of stacked up to do the buttons and provide the stick mounting, and that's pretty nice in there. It doesn't come with a plexi for the top, and it doesn't come with a plate for the bottom. Additionally, I've never really dealt with this style of mounting before. It took me a while, but I think I got it figured out. One big downside to this thing is somebody stained it green. And unfortunately for me, they did a very good job of it, so it kind of kills me to undo it, but it's not really going to work with my artwork here. Another thing that I don't particularly like is the placement of the smaller 24mm buttons. Now I could re-drill and recess them from the top using, say, a Forstner bit. But if I do that, and I opt for a transparent bottom, you're going to see 3 unused holes, and I don't think I can do that. I also don't yet know what I'm going to do with the third 24mm button, because I think right now I only have a use for 2 of them. I'll have to look at the small cab pinout again to see if they have a separate button for coin, or if they're maybe putting it on select. I don't really know yet. Anyway, moving on to the other stuff that I've purchased for this. The next few are going to be a little boring here. So I've just picked up some fully insulated wire terminals of the correct size for the Seimitsu buttons that I'm using. And for wiring, I'm going with a kind of a red and black theme. That's actually going to match the case back here because I'm actually going to be painting this case black. I'm not going to be restaining it, stripping, bleaching, and restaining this thing because this wood isn't really what I would consider a nice enough wood to bother staining anyway. Now, if it was walnut, cherry, or mahogany, it'd be a different story, but it's not. It's just some kind of garbage wood, it looks like. So anyway, moving on to the interesting stuff over here at Focus Attack, we get the Seimitsu LS3201. Now, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to come because it's my understanding that the 3201 is going to have the Panasonic switches versus the Omron switches, but down here they keep talking about the new Omron switches, and okay. I couldn't find one where it was just the bare switches, so I'm going to have to get the one where they're on this board here. So I'm going to have to figure that out a little bit. I would much rather have the switches be bare because it lets me do creative and more attractive things with the wiring than this little nubbins down here does. Generally also, I don't particularly like when they use these little metal sticks to actuate the switches. I find that these tended to bend out over use, at least on American/European systems, and that's why I use the IL Super Stick, because it actually has an actuator that presses flat against these. But we're going to suffer a bit, and we're going to put this together the way that they want us to. As we can see over here, it's going to come with a wiring harness and a black ball top and dust washer. I don't really see any need to change those because, again, I'm going with a red and black theme. If there's too much black going on, I may switch this to a red ball top. I imagine the dust washer will probably stay black, though. So moving on to these buttons. These are the 30mm buttons. And I've never really wired these up, so I don't know which of these two is supposed to be the ground. Okay, I know it doesn't matter, but when you put one of these together, you start getting weirdly picky about things. So I'm going to have to go and look at it and decide which one I want to be the common ground. And this is just kind of keeping with the red and black theme of it all. And I noticed there's a little bit of, it's not totally flat, there's a little bit of convex up here. And I think I kind of like that shape to the actual push button itself. Really, I think this is a good compromise here since I can't use my favorite IL buttons. Oh, also coming back to the stick here, I guess one of the things that I'm hoping this does over the Sanwa JLFs I've used, and I guess still continue to use, I've heard the spring is stiffer in these, and one of the upgrades I always have to do with the JLFs is put in the 2 kg spring to make them a little bit stiffer to make them center quicker. And this should actually take care of that. I believe it's also got a shorter shaft under the ball top by default, and that should also help out with centering. I think I'm really going to enjoy this stick. Anyway, skipping over to here, they actually look the same, but these are going to be the 24mm matching red and black buttons for up top for my start and select, and oh gosh, whatever I do with the third one, right? So one other thing that we should talk about is the artwork. So the artwork, as we can see over here, just kind of keep in mind the overall layout. And the artwork I'm planning on using is this piece from Jake Murray here. And I managed to find a high enough resolution one that I don't need to, contact him and beg for nicer artwork. I think this'll go fine. It's not going to print out 300 DPI in there, but I don't really need it to. I usually use some kind of textured canvas anyway to print these out on. Oh, I may not be able to do that actually with this stick mounting mechanism. I may have to go with a non-adhesive print. Well, we'll see. We'll see. We're a few videos away from that. Anyway, I planned for the stick to be over here in kind of this empty space, and I was hoping to kind of move this around so you could still see what was going on over here despite all the buttons. And I guess that's pretty much going over what I wanted to go over on this video. One more thing I would like to do is, since I wasn't really doing YouTube when I did my last stick project, I'd like to show that off a bit. I've got some before and afters. So here's the before and after of my last one. Now if you notice, I buy my stick cases and refurbish them. I don't make them myself, and this is because I'm a condo dweller. And unfortunately, condo dwellers tend not to have workshops like woodworking shops. So I do what I can, but I don't think I have large enough tools to make a case. So what I did is I purchased this red octane thing. They call it, I don't know, the suicide stick or something, because it's just got a bunch of sharp edges and awful all over it. And this particular one is actually for PlayStation 1, which you might think is kind of odd because it's got way too few buttons for it. But this apparently is for a game called Soul Blade that I've never bothered to play. It's one of them Namco weapons fighters that came before Soul Calibur, I think. Anyway, it's got these really cheap Chinese controls in there. It's going to look really bad in the next picture where I show the wiring, but this is what I turned it into. I turned it into the Billy D. Williams Colt 45 stick. Now, a lot of guys like to put the bouncy-looking anime girls on their joysticks, and I guess that's okay. I mean, seems a little gay, right? But what's not gay is putting a handsome dude on your stick with some booze. Nothing says straight like a dude stick. Am I right? Anyway, moving over to the inside, you guys are going to love this. So this was actually the commercial product that Red Octane was selling. And I just can't believe it. As you can see on the stick, these these little rods have already bent down. This would have actually been terrible. The picture is actually nice enough that you can read the no-name brand on it. And if you look at the switches, you can see they've got quick disconnects on the signal end of it. But then on the common ground, they've soldered them all, and that just makes absolutely no sense to me. Additionally, there's a bread tie in there and some more quick disconnects. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea. I think all of this is stock though, because it's all soldered into this custom board. I think this thing is just really, really handmade and ugly. And I've never seen this particular type of button before. It's kind of a weird, if we go back to the first picture here, these are actually concave buttons, which is really unusual for like a Japanese style push button. But yeah, as you can see, they've got a concave top, but the back looks very Asian. And over here we have something that, this looks kind of like a HAP or IL style of stick here. It's hard to say what they were going for exactly. It really looks like they saw pictures of arcade hardware and designed it off of the pictures. They never actually touched the arcade hardware because this thing feels just awful. Anyway, here's mine for comparison. I've got the Neo Geo cord coming in here, going into this top wiring block and coming out in this lovely blue and black or red and black for the stick. And this is why I like to have the individual switches over on the sticks, is so I can do this neat swirl thing that I like to do. And as you can see, all the grounds are all daisy chained together, and the signals are all separate, and they're all fairly neatly managed. And down here at the bottom, I've actually got a pinout from the header up here at the top. So it's, up, down, left, right, start, select, ground, A, B, C, D, 5 volts. And this is a Neo Geo conversion from December of 2015. Oh, and actually, here's the square actuator I was talking about, liking how it presses directly in on these cherry switches. I really like the 75-gram cherry micro switches. I don't know how I'm going to like what the Sumitsus come with. I haven't purchased any modifications for them yet. I want to try everything stock first. So I guess that's probably a good first video for this thing, and I hope to continue on with the build log. Right now I'm in, I guess, negotiations with an eBay seller to try and get some mackerel on for the top. And I need that stuff. It's UV stabilized, so I won't have to replace it when it yellows later on. For the bottom, it's going to take, the top takes an 1/8 inch of plexi or something. The bottom is going to take a 1/4 inch of something, it looks like. I'll have to double check before I buy it. But I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to go fully transparent to allow people to see the wiring inside, or if I'm going to go opaque, which I probably will, and then cover the bottom with felt, like just adhesive felt, rather than going with feet, because it just seems like felt it's going to work better in the lap. And that's really all I do, is sit here in this very chair and play it. I don't necessarily need a transparent bottom on it to see my own wiring, although I kind of want it. Anyway, this is going to be the first video here.